sealed or vented sub? That's a good question, Chris. Thank you for the super chat. Sealed or vented sub sound different when driving to limits? Yeah, because you're not going to have port chuffing. That's for sure. On the
innately, the sealed and vented are going to sound different, whether it's the limits or even just normal volume. So to me, like, I don't know. I don't know if I've had a vented sub, but I guess all of them are. If they're ported, it's still a vented sub. But when I think of vented, I'm thinking like the slot.
Like slot.
Yeah, like a full-on rectangular.
Yeah.
So what are the sound differences of the two at their limit? So sealed, what do you expect to hear? Kind of like probably just like hitting the mechanical limit, no?
Yeah, so the good thing about vented subs is the distortion is really low right at the tuning frequency, but below the tuning frequency, it skyrockets. Yeah, like the distortion goes crazy high right up below the tuning frequency. But with a sealed sub, you don't really have that. Well, with a sealed anything, you don't really have that issue. So it's a more gradual overall. Whereas like, if you're looking at a plot and you see the THD will go bloop, right at the tuning frequency, maybe at 50 hertz or 30 hertz, and it goes and shoots to like 100% after that. It's crazy. So that would be one thing.
So please correct me if I'm wrong. Is when you have a ported enclosure, it's kind of acting like an air spring. So there is some resistance up to a certain point, and then below that tuning frequency, does it become like a free air, like as if it wasn't in a box at all and just kind of like flopping around with no resistance?
If it's a bad enclosure, it can. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So it just kind of depends on the design. If they do it right, then you don't really have those issues. But like I said, you start running into to high levels of distortion below the tuning frequency of the port.
And a sealed typically has kind of like almost like a built-in limiter, because it's just a smooth roll off.
Right.
It's kind of like it's just not gonna play that sound that you want it to play if it's too low. Right.
Yeah, but the funny thing about sealed is like if you go low enough in frequency, then the sealed has more output than the ported, because the ported rolls off a lot more quickly. The sealed is not as steep. So at some point, and it's probably usually well below the point that it matters, but at some point the sealed will actually have a little bit more output than the ported.
You want to hear something interesting? So, Chris, I've always been against sealed subs in car audio. Like back in my car audio days, JL Audio, I had them in ported. My friend had the same exact W6s in a sealed, and it was just like, oh, you don't have the same low bass that I have. Like, we called them the wounded seals. Like, they're the seal. Like, they weren't hitting low bass, man.
Seals.
They were the wounded seals, man.
Oh, man.
But nowadays, I'm finding that I'm more impressed with the sealed subs, because when you combine that with DSP, I feel like that's a great combo, because then you have a small sub, you have it's controlled, you don't have that to worry about the port noise, and the DSP just kind of does its thing. So I think that's actually it's a different game now, and I think I like sealed.
So I've reviewed a lot of sealed versus ported, but typically when I do that, it's like SVS will send me the very first time was the dual PB 16s, and I had at the same time dual SB 16s. So I had that all in my theater room, and to me, like for movies, holy cow. There's a violence that comes from like a PB16 versus an SB16. I mean, there's just a lot more output, but you definitely feel it a whole lot more. And I did the same thing with the SVS SB3000 and the PB3000. Same thing. Music, I really liked the SB3000, but I wasn't real impressed with it for movies. The PB3000 was pretty awesome sub, especially for a really small enclosure. It wasn't until I went up to 418s that I'm like, okay, at this point, I don't need any more SPL. I don't need any more output. So the sealed version in big, large drivers, honestly, man, I'm a big fan. I mean, I really like that. Especially
and you also have like 8 more inches of surface area. Diameter. Surface area is calculated differently, but you got it. So it's moving more air too, right?
Yeah. And so that's what I'm saying. I mean, I've got so much pressure in the room. I don't need ported at that point, but if I'm running like dual 12s, I would 100% prefer in my room having dual ported 12s than I would dual sealed 12s.
So you